Now we want to learn about graphing these suckers. So let's say we have an equation x squared plus 4x plus 4y squared minus 4x plus 24y plus 24 equals 0. We want to graph this to see what it is. I don't know, spoiler alert, it's going to wind up being an ellipse, but we don't really, it's not so obvious here that this this equation here is the same as our typical ellipse equation, because this does not look anything like that. But let's see if we can do some algebra magic. The first step I want to do is, well, reorganize things. And it may not make sense, but it will make sense. What I meant by that is that my motivations for doing this may not be so obvious, but there are reasons. There's a madness to my method. Anyway, so I just moved things a little bit. I didn't change anything. I brought the 24 over to the other side, and here I just sort of rearranged the x's and the y's and put everything in groups like this. And notice I left these spaces. Now, before I do anything else, I have a 4y squared, not a plain y squared, so I want to factor out the 4 from this parenthesis. And the reason I have to do that is because I'm going to do the time-honored operation of completing the square. So I'm going to have to take half of 4 is 2, 2 squared is 4, half of 6 is 9, half of 6 is 3, 3 squared is 9. So I added a 4 to this side, which is I have to compensate by adding a 4 to the other side. I added a 9 to this side, but it's really not 9. It's really 4 times 9. So I have to compensate by adding 36 to this side. And now just putting it all together and doing my magic, we're left with this. X squared, x minus 2 squared, that's what this guy is, plus 4 times y plus 3 squared, that's what that guy is, and that equals 16. And I'm almost done because in the formula, I need a 1 over here, not a 16. So I'm just going to divide each side by 16. And voila, we have this, which is an ellipse whose center is 2 comma negative 3. And let's graph that ellipse. So to graph this guy, I'm going to start with the center point, and that's the center right there, 2 comma negative 3. I get the 2 and the negative 3 from inside the parentheses. Now, the 16 is 4 squared, so that means x goes 4 in each direction. So starting from the center, x goes at 4 in each direction. And y, because of the 4 is 2 squared, so y goes 2 up and down in each direction. So I'm starting from my center, and I'm going 4 right and left. I'm starting from the center, I'm going 2 up and down. Why 4? Because it's 16 is 4 squared. Why 2? Because 4 is 2 squared. You see that 16 is 4 squared, and y is and 4 is 2 squared. Anyway, this is my ellipse now. Now I just got to fill it in, which I'm sure I'll do a fabulous job as always. And that is my fabulous ellipse, which started all from this equation right here. This is the equation that started it. 4x squared, x squared plus 4y squared minus 4x plus 24y plus 24 equals 0. We went through all these crunchies here, and I just want to let you see the big picture. We went through all these crunchies here, and we eventually got this equation, this graph right here. Yay! One last thing I want to do is just give some definitions, which I didn't want to bombard you at first with definitions, but let me give you some of them now. In an ellipse, this point here and that point there is called a vertex. Here, that point there and that point there is called a vertex. This long, it's like a diagonal of a circle. I mean, like a diameter of a circle, but it's longer because the ellipse is like, that's a longer diagonal, that's a shorter diagonal, so it's similar to a circle, but not quite the same. Anyway, the long one is called the major axis, the short one is called the minor axis. The minor, here the short one is minor, the long one is major. There's something called foci, the centers of an ellipse, the focus points of an ellipse. We're not going to do much with the focus points of an ellipse, but you will do a lot with that if and when you take Math 116. Anyway, here we go. Here is the points of an ellipse. But let's just say one thing about a focus. If you would take 2 thumbtacks, I think they're called thumbtacks, and attach a string to them. So this string is a string, not a rubber band, but a string. And you sort of like glide a pencil around, it's going to form a perfect ellipse. And these 2 points are the focus points. You could probably go to YouTube and find pictures. Just type in drawing an ellipse with the string and thumbtacks.